We're live, pal.
Perfect. Well, now, let's run from the top.
We're live, pal.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Transitional Champs. I am, of course, the third most talented man in America, America's Got Talent's own, and AEW superstar, the cripple threat, Ryan Niemiller. And with me, as always, I can't remember which one I've used for you. The Punjabi Playboy, Gavin Adams. There we go.
I clapped like this for that one.
You did. You clap like the cymbal monkey. A little like wind-up toy. That was great. How are we, Gavin?
I'm doing well. So last night, AEW Dynamite, first show back on the road, lights go out. Standing in the ring in my fancy booking, the cripple threat Ryan Niemiller, who also spin kicks Arn Anderson.
I do, yeah. Arn Anderson had to get his head very low.
He had to duck into it, and then Cody came out and said, "What are you doing?" And then
I'm like, I'm not that flexible anymore.
And then you get the crowd hyped up, and then you actually punted him in the head.
Yeah, I sent him into early retirement. Cody Rhodes, we're breaking the news here, has retired. After how much I brutalized him.
But yeah, good times. Good to be back. You've been on the road doing your little joke skits.
I mean, I was doing my little skits and I guess seeing my family for the first time in over a year. I guess if that's something you care about, that's what I did.
I don't. I
didn't care for it either. After about 30 minutes, I was like, I want the pandemic to go on forever.
I've met all of your family. All disgusting, including you.
Yeah, I am. Somehow I'm only like third most disgusting, if that gives you an idea of how gross my family is. It's, oh boy.
Trent, ugh.
Yeah, Trent sucks.
But we are here to talk about things today that do not suck. And you had a big family growing up, so you probably played a lot of these games with your family.
Yes. I want to stop you. Some of these things we're going to discuss do suck, but they were still fun nonetheless.
You're right.
Let's not get the bar set too high for what we're about to talk about here. The topic doesn't suck, but some of the topic may suck.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. We discussed this prior. It makes sense to me. Everybody's like, what are they fucking talking about right now?
And they've already turned away, so they'll never know. They will never get this far. Well, we're talking two of my favorite things, and I would assume two of yours.
Absolutely.
That have combined into one. We're going to talk pro wrestling when it has a dirty affair with video games.
Oh, and that bastard child that comes out of that, it's either the best thing to play on a system or one of the worst things that could have been imagined. And we're going to be talking about a little bit, we're going a little bit obscure, we're going very popular, and we're going downright trash.
Yes.
Because one of the games I'm bringing to the table, one of the worst wrestling games, and dare I say games ever made.
Yeah, let's hold off on that one.
Yes.
I feel that one has... we can talk about it for a while.
Yes.
So I think we picked 3 games each that we're going to talk about today from a little bit of we got a different era here. I'll be honest up front. When it comes to pro wrestling games, I generally don't love modern ones.
Really?
Mostly and this sounds silly because I like simulation video games for like basketball and football and hockey, that type of stuff. I like it to be realistic. With wrestling, since wrestling is kind of like a silly fantasy thing anyway, when they try to make it realistic, it never plays out like how wrestling matches do. Because there's always going to be that little bit of fighting game thing. I would rather you just make it like an arcade brawler kind of fighter than try to make it real wrestling, if that makes sense.
And that's where a lot of the later 2K games, 2K20 notwithstanding, because that would have been trash regardless.
Yes.
A lot of the 2K games get too simulation-y where it's like you really got to really work a limb over. And you're like, I've never seen John Cena work a limb as much as he's doing in this game right now.
Yeah. Not once. He's doing a lot of my John Cena chain wrestles a ton. That's what he does.
So yeah, I do miss. So that's when games and then they also try to do games that are a little bit more brawly, and those don't turn out so well, such as the WWF Battleground or WWE Battleground, which isn't great.
That is a game I did play that, and I completed it. I 100%ed it with achievements and such. That was a game that I liked for 3 hours. but took 8 hours to finish.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like after a certain point, you're like, I'm done with this.
Mhm.
But they did the typical like EA style where it's like you get a few wrestlers, but if you want to unlock the good ones, you have to either pay for them or really grind out these coins for days.
You gotta grind out to get Asuka, baby. You gotta.
Yeah, and I don't have I'm not ready for Asuka, apparently, if that was the way I had to do it. So,
but I think, do you remember the first wrestling game you ever played?
The very first wrestling game I ever played, and it's not one on my list that I brought today because I don't think it held up very well, was Tag Team Wrestling for the NES.
Okay.
I believe one of the neighbor kids in the trailer park had it. So that was that was the first game I remember playing, and that was still the time where any video game was just mind-blowing. I was probably 6, 7 years old at the most. So just kind of seeing anything, and I wasn't even a huge wrestling fan yet. I kind of got into wrestling a little bit older. I was like 11, 12.
Mm-hmm.
I finally got into it. So it wasn't even like the concept of wrestling was so, crazy, but it was more just like, oh, this looks like a wrestling match. It doesn't, but like it was the closest you could get. So I remember just being fascinated by that. It's not a great game, not a whole lot to it. That's kind of how those games were. They didn't have a lot of memory to do much. There's like maybe 6 wrestlers you can pick from. It's a good proof of concept of what they could do. But that was the first one I remember. How about you?
The first one I played, I thought it was WWF Raw for Super Nintendo, but actually the first game I ever played was Muscle for the NES.
Okay, the anime, based off like the anime
wrestling. I was not good at it. I don't think I ever figured out how to actually do anything in that game. It's very confusing, but I played Muscle and it was like, yeah, this is neat. I think I want to play Battletoads now.
I remember more Muscle. I don't think I ever played the game. I had some of the old toys.
Oh,
they had little like the pink rubbery weird ass toys. I remember collecting some of those.
They were made out of whatever was left over from the sex toy factory. They're like, turn these into some toys and make the man's head look like a penis also.
Exactly. And then I used them as sex toys. I was actually, it's the answer for your first wrestling video game. My first butt plug.
Good.
Was Muscle. So, perfect.
It just ties in perfectly.
Exactly. We call that serendipity. That's just
how many muscles do you have up your butt right now? That's for you to know and us to never find out.
Yeah, actually, the reason that people ask how I was so calm on AGT had 6 muscles in my ass. It just made me feel like I was at home.
And maybe if you had 9, you would have won, you son of a bitch.
I might have won. Yeah, I know that now. If I ever get back on the show, 9 muscle action figures deep in my colon. That was the weirdest thing. We're gonna get flagged for
being too awesome. I think we're gonna get a copyright strike from Muscle. Be like, stop talking.
Muscle, please quit putting us in your ass. So you mentioned almost one of the games that I brought to the table. So you mentioned WWF Raw for the Super Nintendo.
I did mention that game. I remember playing that game very fondly. It had a bucket and a chair you could hit people with.
Yes, and that's all I needed in life. That's why I was suspended from school for a week after the game came out. But one of the first games I want to talk about was the predecessor to that, which is basically the same match engine, is WWF Royal Rumble.
Yes, I played that one after Raw, and I was like, where'd all this stuff go?
Yeah, it didn't have much
bucket.
Yeah, there was no bucket. The roster was different. I think both games had 12 guys. So for me, the reason I really like this game, and I remember being obsessed with this game when it first came out. So I can never remember the name of the actual video store, but there was this little like rental place right outside of our trailer park that when I found out this game, and I probably saw this on a episode of Monday Night Raw, because there's like one of those commercials where it's like WWF action, only had your Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, like those type of commercials. I remember seeing it because the Royal Rumble is still to this day my favorite match, my favorite event.
It's great.
In wrestling. Yeah, it's even when WWE's in a downturn, it's still like that match is fun or something to look forward to anyway. Doesn't always deliver, but you're going to look forward to it. So when I saw that this game existed, I was like, hell yeah, I can have Royal Rumbles at home. I remember just standing outside. I was like 8. I had nothing better to do. but just standing outside daily. I would get up in the morning and go to this video store and just wait because it was like checked out when it was first out. And I would just wait all day, just eyeballing the parking lot. And anytime somebody was bringing something to return, I was like, hey, is that WWF Royal Rumble? just pestering strangers. I probably could have been kidnapped. I was a cute little cherub boy.
Be like, I've got a Royal Rumble in my van. You want to come play?
I would at that point I would have went to that van. That's how excited I was to play. But I remember for days I was the guy who was working there had to be annoyed as hell because I'd go ask him every 30 minutes. Hey, did they like call or anything to say if they were going to bring it back today? Or who's going to call and say like I'm bringing this back? That's not a thing that happens.
Hey, Blockbuster, I'm on my way. Is there a small child asking about it? Let him know I'm on my way.
Let him know. We had our contract for 24 hours. I am fulfilling that contract. I just wanted to let you know ahead of time. Be ready.
I'm coming.
And this VHS of Police Academy 3, I was kind and I rewinded. It's ready to go. So I remember like being so fascinated with this game and wanting it so badly. And like when we first got to rent it, like me and one of my buddies in the trail, but we just played it for hours upon hours upon hours. Like, there was only 12 guys. You could do 12-person Royal Rumbles. I think the most they could be in the ring at any given time was 4. Maybe 6.
I think 4 was it.
4 on that, yeah. It was low, and the roster was a little limited. Like the game has its problems. I remember being also enjoying. It's the first WWF game I ever played, and I guess first wrestling game period, where the wrestlers had finishing moves.
Yes,
that were accurate. Because I remember playing WWF Super WrestleMania, which was based off the arcade, and it's the same style. Like they kind of look similar. But no wrestlers had their own unique finishers. So everybody kind of did. It was just reskins of the same guy. So it would be like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and all that, but they would all do the same shit. This, you actually had finishing moves. There was no submissions. So it made a couple of them weird. Like Bret Hart would do the sharpshooter and keep it on for 3 seconds and then let him go. And then you had to pin the guy. So it got a little messy. But I remember just loving this game and playing the hell out of it. I'm still building a Super Nintendo collection as part of my big video game collection. This was actually one of the first Super Nintendo games I made sure to get just because I have so many fond memories. Again, better wrestling games, even for the Super Nintendo. Like Raw is better. One of the games I'm going to talk about later is better. There's better games, but this one has a big nostalgic place in my heart.
I remember playing that. I rented it from a place called Book Broker here in Evansville.
All right.
They had Raw and they had Wrestle, and they had I actually rented a lot of wrestling games from there. But yeah, just playing who's on the roster of that?
So I'm gonna try to do it off of memory. So
Bret Hart, Undertaker.
So what's that?
Bret Hart, Undertaker,
Shawn Michaels, Mr. Perfect, Razor Ramon.
Was Ric Flair in there?
Ric Flair is in that one. Yes, Yokozuna. I believe Tatanka. My boy, Tatanka.
Your boy Tatanka.
Kona Crush. Let's see. Yeah. Crush in there. Lex Luger when he was still the narcissist with those creamy hamstrings.
Oh my God. Look at him. Look at them hamstrings.
Yeah. So I will read what Wikipedia says. So the SNES and Genesis versions were released 3 months apart, with each version having several exclusive wrestlers. So I played the Super Nintendo version. So they shared Bret Hart, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Randy Savage, Crush, the narcissist Lex Luger. The SNES version, its unique ones were Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, Ted DiBiase, Yokozuna, and Tatanka. Not bad.
Okay, not bad.
Genesis, I actually probably would prefer this now in hindsight. It's a toss-up. But Genesis version has Hulk Hogan, IRS, Jim Duggan, Rick the Model Martel, and my boy Papa Shango.
Oh, love me some Papa Shango.
Papa Shango. And just a little small plug here. On July 22nd, I'm doing a virtual show at nowherecomedy.com where I am the kind of master of ceremonies for a night with the Godfather.
Yes, also known as a night with Khan Mustafa, also known as a night with Papa Shango.
Exactly. I plan on asking him an hour and a half of Papa Shango questions. That's what I'm doing.
Just deep Papa Shango cuts.
It's going to be great. So yeah, that was Not the first, like I said, not the first wrestling game I ever played. The first one I remember really getting into and putting a lot of time into.
Nice. Okay, so one of the games that I really poured a lot of time in back in the year 2000
Heard of it?
I think it came out in 1990. I believe it came out in 1998 or 1999. But I did not have, despite wearing this N64 hoodie, I did not have an N64 until very late in this console's life. So while everybody else was playing their WCW, NWO Revenges, all the Aki games, No Mercy, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania 2000, I played a piece of shit by Acclaim called WWF Attitude. It was a clunky mess, but we loved it because the fans threw belts in the ring, and for some reason I thought the blood effects in that were like the best thing ever. And
well, by 99 standards, they were.
They were
pretty cool for 99.
It was pretty cool. And I remember just playing the shit out of that game. And I couldn't even right now, like I couldn't tell you the roster now, but I remember just playing it. Undertaker, Mankind, The Rock was definitely in there. Triple H, I think X-Pac was in there. And just playing this game for hours. And it didn't have a lot of content at all, but just playing it. I didn't care. I had WWF Attitude. And it was one of those games where I rented it first, and then I was like, I gotta buy this game.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a roster on here per se. So the game came out. You said you played it N64.
I played the PlayStation version.
It's also for PlayStation, Dreamcast, and the Game Boy Color.
Yes, I played the PlayStation version because I didn't get an N64 until later in life. Yeah. But yeah, I just remember just digging everything. And as a fun aside, I had a teacher in elementary school I did not like. So I created them to the best of my ability and attitude and beat them with a kendo stick.
Well done. I appreciate that. As we all wish to. If you did that in 2021, you would be a sociopath.
Which I am now.
Yes,
still.
but for totally different reasons.
I just remember like just seeing the crowd and be like, this crowd looks like the most realistic crowd. When really they look like monsters from the movie Ghosts that come to take your soul. Yeah. They are terrifying.
It's very flat and they're almost like made of clay.
And whenever the camera would like zoom around them, you're like, oh, there's very two-dimensional. But back then, that's all we had. It was definitely a step up from Warzone, with the exception of not having the amazing Ahmed Johnson promos.
That is true.
That was cut, but still, Attitude was when I think of games I played to death as a kid. WWF Attitude was definitely one of those games.
Yeah, this is definitely this game, especially for the N64, which has, we're not really talking about them today, but like it has some of the most well-beloved wrestling games
that
ever
still
created.
hold up.
Yeah, that are still fun because it did the right gameplay loop. You know, they looked good for that style of game. Like it's obviously polygonal, so it's going to look a little weird, but everything just works. The rosters were great. Like obviously WCW, NWO Revenge and World Tour and WWF No Mercy and WrestleMania 2000. I think those are far superior games. I don't hate this game. It's not great.
Yeah,
but I would rather play the other ones now if I had the choice. But you gotta. I'm looking at a little bit of stuff here. They added First Blood and I Quit match. I think that was the first time those were in there.
I love the animation for shoving a microphone in their mouth.
Yeah.
It's like.
Audio commentary provided by Jerry Lawler and Shane McMahon.
What? Really?
At least in one of the versions.
It wasn't in my version. I think Jim Ross was in the PlayStation version.
Interesting. Huh. There's a little bit of...
That's a weird to have Shane McMahon on commentary. That's a weird choice.
Here's another cool thing, too. So I'm reading this, again, Wikipedia. Create a Wrestler mode was expanded with original entrance music, as well as superstar nicknames with unique commentary and crowd chants for each name. Vocals for the original entrance themes were provided by the Road Dogg, a popular wrestler at the time of the game's release who would frequently show off his mic skills during events.
So the Road Dogg recording all these themes.
Yep, just doing all the vocals for these themes. Good for the Road Dogg.
Good for a Road Dogg. But yeah, WWF Attitude is a game I definitely remember fondly. Does not hold up, but the nostalgia is strong with that one.
Perfect, yeah. And nostalgia is a very powerful force. But I would say if anyone's getting into N64 wrestling games, look at WCW versus NWO World Tour Revenge, and then probably WWF No Mercy first. I
Yes,
would look that direction first if you're trying to get them.
yes, I would definitely. All right, Ryan, what other games shaped you as a wrestling fan?
So I'm sticking with Super Nintendo era again. This is when I played a lot of wrestling video games. I do not own a copy of this, which is a big, for my own personal collection, is a blind spot for what I don't have, considering how much I played this as a kid. I just haven't found a price I like yet. But it was a game developed by Capcom, and I think it was arcade first, and they did a port of it for Genesis and Super Nintendo. It's more fighting game than wrestling game, but it's kind of based around wrestling. That would be Saturday Night Slam Masters.
Now, I have never played this. I have watched footage, and it looks great because I think Hagar from
Mike Hagar from Final Fight.
He's in that.
It's canon. It's in the same world. So apparently, according to like the little blurb that you see, like about his like profile, he used to be the mayor of New York, and now that he's not mayor anymore, he's getting in the wrestling ring.
It's like Mike Hagar from Final Fight, also Sammy Hagar from rock music, also in this game,
and Sami Zayn from the future is somehow there.
I've never played it, so how does it play?
It plays more. I would honestly say it's a little more like Street Fighter. Like Street Fighter 2 than it is like a traditional grapple wrestling game. With the kind of cool stuff being, instead of being kind of like on the same plane, like games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2 were, there's like up and down motion because you kind of get to walk around the ring. So it's almost like a mix of like the beat 'em ups like Final Fight with like Street Fighter. So everyone has their own unique moves and like combos, and you know, they have little health bars you wear down. It's such a fun. I'll admit it's probably a more fun play with a buddy game. It's one of those type of games. But for me, it was one of the first wrestling games I really got into that had unique characters that wasn't based on a license.
Yeah.
It's got such great. I'll read you some of the character names. Okay. For what are in there. So there is, of course, Mike Hagar, which we all know. There is Biff Slamkovich.
Is he Russian?
He is very Russian. Yes. I love Wikipedia for stuff like this when they try to be like serious about something that's kind of silly. So the main protagonist of the series in the Japanese version of the game, his name in the Japan version is Alexei Zalazov. He's Russian. Zalazov is a Russian wrestler who trained under Hagar alongside his rival Gunlock. Yeah. But although, so it doesn't, in the English version that doesn't exist, but he does make a reference to his comrade Zangief in his losing quote. Okay. So he's I guess apparently he used to train with Zangief from Street Fighter.
So then is Street Fighter, Final Fight, and Saturday Night Slam Masters all in the same universe?
I think they are all canon in the same universe, yes.
Good, nice, good for them. Yep. What I really like about this game is that there were a lot of like non-licensed type sports games back in the Super Nintendo era. One that comes to mind, Bill Lambier's Combat Basketball.
Yes.
That is a terrible fucking game.
One of the worst.
One of the worst. So when I hear Saturday Night Slam Masters, it has big Bill Lambier combat basketball vibes, but it's I've only watched gameplay of it. It looks super fun. They gave the characters like entrances and like their own unique movesets like Street Fighter. So this is a game I do eventually want to play, whether it be through emulation or like getting an actual cart and playing with you. But yeah, it looks dope.
Yeah, and it has such good like just good character building and like world building, considering what it is. Like there's built-in rivalries. There's one of the characters' name is El Stingray. He is a luchador who wears a mask because he's too beautiful for anyone to see. like that's a pretty fun gimmick, especially like that's a mid-90s game, but that's a gimmick. Like he doesn't wear a mask for like family tradition. It's like no one deserves to look at his pretty face.
That is also the reason why they put Andrade in a mask for so long.
Exactly.
Because he's too handsome.
He is just, I would pour him over my belly like pancake syrup. He is a sexy boy. I'm gonna give him that. So yes, I would recommend Again, the cart's a little pricey on this one. Not like it's not crazy. It's not like upper tier. But if you find a copy of this, or I'm not one to advocate emulation, but I'm also not naive enough to think that nobody does it. So give this game a play. I think it plays pretty similar on Genesis or Super Nintendo. And there's also a sequel that was arcade only that I've never played.
So you'll need to add that to your collection. You're going to need to get the machine from Japan.
Yes, once I get 3 game rooms, if my girlfriend's nice enough to give me a 3rd game room,
that's when
we'll fill that with gigantic arcade cabinets from Japan exclusively.
All right. So I can't wait to play in your home arcade.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
All right. So my next game, a little bit of a newer game, relatively speaking. It's about 14 years old now, which, good God, I remember.
Yeah, good God.
Time waits for no man. So I watched wrestling from 1997 to about 2002, right about towards the Attitude Era ending, just kind of got into high school, kind of lost interest. Came back real hard in 2006 during ECW coming back. And then I knew I got to play a wrestling game. And the game that came out next was SmackDown versus Raw 2007. Boom, right there. You got Triple H on the cover. You got John Cena there. You've got is that Trish on the cover? Who's that lady?
That is Tori Wilson.
Tori Wilson, okay.
Yeah. And you got Mysterio up there, and you got Batista.
Yeah, this was of all the games that came out during the Ruthless Aggression era, this was definitely my favorite. I remember this was the first wrestling game to be on next gen systems. I played the regular PlayStation 2 version, and then I later got to play the 360 version. And it was just, I remember playing the demo on the 360 at a friend's house, and like Kurt Angle can moonsault off a scaffolding. This is so cool. And just how I would say SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 looks as good as any game that's come out for any of the new generation games, because it was high def graphics, but it had a unique art style to it as well, where it holds up better and looks better than like SmackDown versus like 2K17 or something. Just I don't know what they did, but they made it just a great art style. And the GM mode, which was introduced in 2006, really had another layer added to it. I just remember playing GM mode for hours against the computer. I rented it for a weekend, and I ended up playing more text-based GM mode than anything else, because it's so addicting, and you're like, I want to get a 5-star match at this pay-per-view so I can beat the computer.
Yeah. One of the so I've not played a ton of these yet. I have all of them. I just recently picked them up from a buddy of mine. This is kind of considered a really strong era of video games. Like most people consider it like the last really good WWE games is these games. 07, if this is indicative of anything, is the one that's held its value the most. So I think this is probably of the series the most wanted.
I picked it up at like a Mega Replay, and I went in and I checked like for a couple of months, and it was fine there. And I think I still had to end up paying like $18 for it.
Yeah. So according for what it's worth, price charting. If you've never been to pricecharting.com, if you're not big video game people, it basically gives like an idea of what games cost loose, complete in box, brand new, based off of like Amazon and eBay and all that kind of stuff. This version here, it's open, complete in box. Got it all here, manual and everything. Still $44.41.
Really?
Yeah, for and 360. In case anyone, this getting little probably in the nerdy weeds. 360 hasn't really spiked in value yet. There's not a whole lot of crazy expensive stuff because you can play a lot of this on modern systems still, so it hasn't got that bump. So yeah, that for a wrestling game in a series, no less. Usually, sports games in series don't hold their value because there's always going to be a next one, and a next one, and a next one. So still be like $44. That's impressive.
I mean, I feel good that I got mine for 18 now.
Yeah, you did a good job.
I did a good job, but yeah, I just really enjoy that game. I think the roster is very strong. You've got the best of the Ruthless Aggression era, and like you have some like duds in there, like some flash in the pan type people. But just
I don't want to get everyone too excited. Sorry to cut you off there, but the Boogeyman.
Hey, I remember getting so hyped for this game and like watching the entrances, like because IGN every week would like show a new entrance for the game, and the Boogeyman's entrance, he smashes that clock on his head and
the Boogeyman's dope. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
I still love the Boogie. Like, he is just as ripped now. He was old then. So he was like in his like kind of late 40s then. It was ripped. This is like almost 14 years later. That dude's still ripped now.
I mean, you had people like the Mexicools in there, so yeah, that came out on their lawnmowers. And I would always give Psychosis a nice push in GM mode. I was like, why am I trying to make him the Intercontinental Champion?
Because Psychosis deserves better.
So yeah, 2007 SmackDown vs. Raw, probably my last. If you're not counting like as far as like a true wrestling game, SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 is my last favorite. I think All Stars is probably better, but that gets more to like arcadey fun type action. But yeah, 2007 strong year and has the best GM mode by far.
Perfect. I'll have to give this a shot. Like I said, I just got these not that long ago. My buddy had a bunch of old video games, and he was a pro wrestler for a while, so he has tons of wrestling games. Like that's a lot of what it was. So I got all of the SmackDown versus Raw games now. So I just need to actually sit and play them a little bit.
I just assumed that Pretty Peter Avalon gave them all to you.
It's a guy I met through Peter, actually.
Oh,
but
really?
It was not Peter himself. Yeah. That's my buddy, Oliver Grimsley.
Okay.
He trained with the Dudleys, whatever, like the Team 3D wrestling school or whatever.
Yeah, the Team 3D Academy.
Yeah, he trained there, and he's a good dude. He just he kind of got out of it because his back was hurting and he wants to walk. But I think he's a wrestler, but he's a good dude. Shout out to my buddy Oliver if you're listening.
There you go.
He's not, because he's not my friend anymore.
All right, Ryan, you're about to get real obscure and nerdy here with your next pick.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about is this the one wrestling game I still play? I've been playing this since 1996. So that's when I first got a computer and the internet, and I discovered this pretty soon after. This is a DOS game, if that tells you anything. It's based off of DOS. It took a lot of work for a while to get it to work on modern systems because they don't really work with DOS. So I've had to use DOS emulators. Luckily, the guy who developed this game is kind of back around to like modernizing it now. But the game I'm talking about is a completely text-based wrestling simulator called TNM 7. So TNM is short for tournament. Because originally when the game was first developed, that's about all it could do. It was just running basic matches and basic tournaments and stuff like that. And then it kind of got deeper. So this is basically a booking simulator. So most people nowadays, if you're into like a wrestling kind of text video game, it's going to be TEW. That was the one that you mentioned.
That's what I played a lot of. Yeah. I played a lot of TEW in the summer after college. I was like, I ran TNA, and it was a good time to be running TNA.
Exactly. So I played a little TEW. I enjoy it for what it is. That is a little more gamey. It's kind of like a gamey style simulator. Eventually you can kind of figure out, if I book these type of matches and I get this guy, I can make this happen. You can kind of figure it out eventually. TNM is not meant to do that. So it's not a game in the traditional sense. It's essentially a match simulator that he then built other stuff around where you can like run promotions and stuff. So I use it in probably the nerdiest way possible. I basically do my own wrestling fan fiction with it. And I use this, not the weird kind, not like the weird kind. It's not like I'm having them put muscles in my ass. All right. It's a different.
It's like you're having them put muscles in your ass while the guys from Supernatural watch you do it.
Yeah, exactly. So what I use it for, is kind of, it keeps everything in order for me because it's a nice thing where you can set up your own, they're called circuits on there, but basically your own promotion where you get to hire the wrestlers, you can set up all your tag teams and stables and the referees and the managers and all that good stuff. And then you simulate the matches. You can either let them kind of play out by themselves if you want it to be a game situation. It's very, very stat heavy. Everyone has all these stats. The moves have stats. They have all this stuff. You have them compete against each other. You can let it decide who wins or not. Or if you want to do like I do and use it as like a booking kind of simulator, you can pick who wins, how they win, that type of stuff. and it will throw you curveballs occasionally that you can choose to ignore or not. So I like using it because I have these, like, I want to like make my own promotion. Like that's I think what a lot of us who are wrestling fans, we fantasy book a lot. That's like a big deal being a wrestling fan. So I would do the fantasy booking, and I like when it gives you the curveballs because it has stuff like injuries. So like you'll be wrestling match like, oh, like I'm booking, John Cena to be the world champ. He's doing his big bill. Oh, great. He just tore his quad.
I was going to say,
now I got to change.
He blew both his quads sliding into the ring.
Yeah, exactly. So I like it for that, because I think if you're just writing, I've known lots of really nerdy guys over the years, and I appreciate it, who will do pen and paper and that type of stuff. But this gives you, like, outside of your own control, like real life things to kind of deal with. So occasionally you might be pushing a guy, or a guy's like your world champion and he quits all of a sudden. So now it's in your head, like, okay, shit, like how do I now make that work?
Well, that's what you get for hiring the Ultimate Warrior in 1991. What did
always the Ultimate Warrior? Your mileage on this can vary, because it is there's good manuals for it, but it is very much a product of its time. It was huge in like the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. During that, a lot of people used it for like e-wrestling feds because it kind of kept everything together. It was big during that time, and it's still a little bit. Like I said, he's working on doing a lot of new stuff now, which he doesn't have to do, and it's great that he does. His name's Oliver Kopp. He's a good friend of mine. Big shout outs to Oliver. He's the best. He's a German boy. I like him play. So he's doing some more work on it, but it kind of is a product of its time a little bit. So it can be a little daunting if you're first getting into it and you're like, I don't know how to do all this. Making wrestlers takes a lot. Luckily, there's still a community of guys who creates the wrestlers. So you can get modern guys now, like the AEW roster, stuff that was obviously well after, the creation of that game. But
way before some of the AEW roster was born.
Legitimately, not even kidding. Because I think the game originally, the very first version was like 92.
Yeah.
And apparently, this is a 100% true story. How it came about was Oliver bet Jim Cornette that he could make something that would make Jim Cornette use a computer. Like that was the initial kind of like thing. It was like almost like a challenge, because I guess Jim Cornette hated this. I mean, again, it's early 90s. I think it's changed a little bit there, but he was so anti-computer, he didn't want to do any of that. And my buddy Oliver is like, I bet you I can come up with something that would make you use it. And lo and behold, and like over the years, he's had a lot of pro wrestlers that used it. I remember talking with Stevie Richards about it. Like, because, so just certain guys, I don't want to name anyone's names, so I don't want to betray any trust, but just some of the guys I know that have used, like big guys and recent guys. It's just a cool nerdy thing if you're really into it. So tnm7.com is the website. I will always give a shout out to this. If you want to sell it for sale, there's a lot of like extra. Over the years, he's implemented, like, you can do theme musics and like pictures. So like we'll set up almost like there's like a ring announcement and pictures. Kind of a lot of cool stuff you can dive into if you want to get that deep into it, but I highly recommend it. And it has a 28-day free trial where basically you can play everything on it and see if you like it.
And if you use a promo code Cripple Threat,
exactly,
nothing happens.
I will come over to your house and shove a muscle in your ass. That is what I'll do.
Just one.
Just one.
Just one.
Yeah, but if you buy the whole suite, the premium package.
Oh, God, I'll shove the whole pack up there.
Every muscle going in that pooper.
All right. So there's nowhere to go except for the pooper.
Yeah. Speaking of things that came out of an ass instead of going into it.
We've talked a lot about some obscure games, our favorite games, downright classics. And now we have to talk about a game that has the distinct possibility of being one of the worst wrestling games ever conceived and one of the worst games ever made. I played this game at, I think, one of my mom's friends' houses. Like, her grandkids were over and like they had it. I played this game. Hit him with that cart there.
Boom.
WCW Backstage Assault, the last WCW game ever made. They were going to make Mayhem 2. Which is going to be a sequel to, it's going to be more in the line of like WCW Revenge. Aki was back on board. Of course, WCW shut down in 2001 before that came out. So the last game of WCW, much like the last years of WCW, is a complete shit show. They
So just for reference, to give you an idea of when it got released, to get like of the era. So for PlayStation, October 31st, 2000. For Nintendo 64, December 12th, 2000. So that's right near the end
So this
of
is
WCW.
3 months before the company was shut down. And when you look at this roster on the game, you can tell it is not going well. They decided to take some of the aspects of like No Mercy and WCW Mayhem, the first one, and like, you want to go backstage like in the SmackDown games? Well, guess what? You can only fight backstage. There's no ring in this wrestling game. So it's not even really a wrestling game. It's like a shitty outside brawler.
Yeah, it's bad. It's I'm going to give you some of the roster. So if you ever wanted to play as General Rection, you can. Sergeant AWOL is in there. So basically most of the Misfits in action. Corporal Cajun, you can do that.
They went so hard for Misfits in action.
Major Guns. Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker is in the game. If you ever wanted to play as the trainer from the power plant. You can play as Doug Dillinger, the head of security. Like the actual head of security, not like a storyline. Like he was like 180 years old when he was helping walk Ric Flair down to the ring in like 89 for his matches against Steamboat.
What we're saying is the roster thin at this point. Very, very thin.
Oh God.
Is Vampiro in it?
Vampiro is so in it. Probably in it twice.
I know Mike Awesome was in it. Is Booker T and Scott Steiner, were they still there?
Booker T's in there. Scott Steiner. Actually, not seeing Scott Steiner. Oh, yeah, there he is. Scott Steiner's in there. Mona. So a little early Molly Holly, if you want to play as her. Kimberly. Let's see, David Flair.
Oh, God. I love playing as David Flair, let me tell you.
There had to be, and I don't know the guy. Maybe he's a perfectly nice dude. Don't know him. So, grain of salt. Was there anyone who was ever like, you know what, David Flair is my favorite wrestler. I can't wait to play as him.
I mean, David Flair may have been Ric Flair's favorite wrestler until Charlotte started wrestling.
That is very true.
And then
you can apparently wrestle as Elizabeth. So if you want to have a backstage fight between Miss Elizabeth and Tank Abbott, now you can do it, everybody.
Listen, when I download your friend's emulator,
right here, baby,
I'm gonna program in DOS language Tank Abbott versus Miss Elizabeth. The game is awful. I remember distinctly the bathroom level where you could like hit people with urinals. Nothing worked. It's not a good game in any conceivable notion. And it barely even functions. Like, not only is it a bad game and a terrible concept, it's just so buggy and just rushed out the door.
Yeah. I love this quote from the, this is from the review from IGN of the N64 version of Backstage Assault. This is for the verdict, the first line. If you're a hardcore WCW fan, then this isn't the game for you. Like, even if you're the most hardcore WCW fan, which in most of the time, if there's a bad game, the only people who might like it are people who are hardcore into that thing. Nope. It fails to impress in nearly every way and certainly doesn't deliver a presentation worthy of the WCW license.
Then again, this is WCW in 2000, so there was no greater representation than having a fight in a bathroom.
Oh, love it. The visuals have actually gone downhill. The animations are choppier, and to top it all off, the multiplayer experience really sucks. And for most people, including myself, the best part of any wrestling game is the fun of bruising up your friends. While this game certainly offers bruises, it just doesn't pack the punch wrestling fans crave. 4 out of 10.
They got a 4 out of 10?
Yeah.
That is still pretty high.
IGN, kind of traditionally, they're very lenient, I guess. I think they're like one of those groups that they know so many people in the video game development business that they don't want to just be like, this is a 1, it's shit.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of like, I know people worked hard on this game. It just didn't work.
Well, I only say it's a 4 because I was watching. They just released a new Dungeons and Dragons game on Game Pass, and it also got a 4.
It did.
So if I don't want to play this D&D game now, if it has the same score as Backstage Assault.
Yes. To give you an idea, this was still the era where clearly reviewers were getting paid off for certain things. So IGN 4 out of 10. Game Informer, 3.5 out of 10. So those seem like pretty realistic. Game Zone, 9 out of 10.
What?
Yeah, 9 out of 10. Maybe if this was your first experience with the concept of a video game, like you had been in a coma since like 1962, and then you woke up and they're like, oh, there's so much to show you. Here, let's play WCW Backstage Assault. You'd be like, oh, fuck, this is wild.
This is better than Pong.
Yeah, this is a 9 out of 10.
And it's got David Flair? Holy shit.
I remember when, before I went into a coma in 1962, Ric Flair was a 6-time world champion.
I just like that the Game Zone was David Flair's like online zine.
This game getting a 9 out of 10 would be like the equivalent of me being like, I'm an award-winning comedian, and that award is my mom's favorite comedian.
Which
like
she is not.
Yeah, I am not even top 10.
She likes Dave Yates way more than you.
Big fan. Big fan. So those are our wrestling game picks. Let us know in the comments, anyone. Let us know what games you might have enjoyed. There's obviously a lot of wrestling games. We could do this many more times.
Yes, there are enough bad games. There's enough good games. We didn't even touch on some of the classics and just some fumbles and just some off-branch. Yeah, I want to do this again for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Let's do it again. Put yourself over, Gavin.
I am Gavin Eddings. I am a horror YouTuber, as well as being on this one with Ryan Niemiller. Just celebrated my 1-year anniversary of starting Gavin Loves Horror.
Hey.
So yeah, I did it for a whole year. I can quit now. No, but you can come check out my horror YouTube channel, Gavin Loves Horror. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Gavin Eddings, where I sometimes talk about wrestling, make jokes, and things like that. Ryan, what do you got going on?
At Cripple Thread 8 on all the things. Back on tour again. That's why it's been a little bit between episodes here. I was working. I was doing my job again. So cripplethreat.com is going to have the schedule there. Coming up here, like I mentioned before, I'm doing on the 22nd that virtual show with The Godfather, which I'm very excited about. I know we joked a little bit, but I was a big fan of Papa Shango. Before I kind of knew what wrestling was, he scared the hell out of me. I remember that. And Godfather was obviously a memorable character from the Attitude Era.
Absolutely. The Ho Train, he got so many local exotic dancers on prime-time television, truly doing the Lord's work.
Doing the Lord's work. So a little bit before that, on the 17th, I'm doing a roast battle at the Comedy Store. And this time it's getting filmed. So I did one with I think you know Bowers, but comedian Chris Bowers. We did one a couple weeks ago. It was for the undercard because neither of us had done them before, so it wasn't getting filmed, and we crushed it.
Good.
We did really well. Jeff Ross personally came up to me and said he wanted me to do more. So Bowers and I are doing it one more time. I think we're going to do new jokes this time, but they want to film it this time. So
good job.
Comedy Store, July 17th. Then after that, I'm on the road. I'll do this very quick, as much as I can remember off the top of my head. July 29th and 31st, I'm in Destin, Florida. In the middle of that sandwich on the 30th, I'm in Panama City Beach, Florida. August 6th and 7th, I'm in Boca Raton, Florida. The weekend after that, the 12th through the 14th, I'm in Baltimore at Magoobies. The 15th, I am at the DC Improv. And then the week after that, I believe it's the week after that, I'm at the Stardome in Birmingham. So cripplethreat.com, buy those tickets. Live stuff is happening. I'm vaccinated, so I can spit in your mouth and everything's going to be cool. Let's make this magic happen.
And he'll be happy to share any muscles currently up his own ass.
Yes. Anyone. If you bring a muscle, I'll give you a free shirt and shove it up my ass.
What a weird meet and greet.
It's the VIP.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. We want to do this again very, very soon. As always, I'm Gavin.
I'm Ryan. Like, comment, and subscribe. And then shove a muscle up your ass.